Welcome to the MindGrow Radio Storyteller Series podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Casson, and today we are joined by owner and creator of Fuel Blue Inspiration Studio, founder of Art Fueled Life by Fuel Blue, the group on Facebook, and author of Be a Rockstar, my friend and one of the coolest humans I know, Bobby Donohue. Welcome, Bobby.
Hey, how are you? Coolest humans. That's an interesting. I like that. Thanks.
You're so welcome. Only the truth here.
I am a cool human.
You're one of the coolest humans that I know. Seriously,
thank you very much.
We've been connected like 12 years or something like that, and ever since I first connected with you, I've just loved everything that you've brought forth, the creative endeavors you've brought out. I've been following your journey. You're pretty amazing there, dude.
I try to do interesting things.
So what made you decide to become an entrepreneur in the first place?
Well, see, that's an interesting question because I'm kind of deciding to not be an entrepreneur anymore.
Are you?
Yeah, except that I probably will be in the sense that people will look at me and think like, oh, yeah, he's an entrepreneur. Look what he's doing. I'm trying to extricate myself from the thinking that I have around that word, if that makes sense.
Ooh,
it's almost like
go into that more.
I created a model around it, and I put walls around that model, and I'm trying to just break down those walls and think of it completely differently. And I feel like for me, the language that I use sort of hinders me or locks me into certain paradigms, and I'm trying to think of it completely differently now. And one of those paradigms is the word entrepreneur. So, yeah, because when I think of the word entrepreneur, I think of how I was taught to be an entrepreneur. You know, like build an audience, create a course, or make a product or a service, and you know, and I've been doing it that way to the point that I'm kind of done doing it that way, you know, and I never really learned a different way to do it. So I just decided, well, then stop using those words and think of yourself as something else, and the new way to do it will pop up. And it's really funny because nobody heard you do this, but right before we started this, you did your intention, and one of that intention, to set an intention for this particular podcast that we're doing, one of the key words you used in that intention was the word value. And I lit up when you said that. You can't see me because we're on the phone, but I did. And that is a word that I've been focusing on rather than, say, work or entrepreneur. I've been focusing on the word value because I just feel like there is so much value that I want to bring that I haven't been because I was locking myself into this paradigm that I created through the language of entrepreneurship as I learned it. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's so interesting to hear your take on that. And it just, the language that we use is so important, and not really for everybody else, but for ourselves and the way that we feel about the language that we're using. So this is a great example of that. So, well, my next question is, what inspired you to start creating animated feature films? And so was that part of that shift, you moving out of the entrepreneur feelings that you had about that word or paradigm, as you put it, into something else as a creator?
Absolutely. The animated film that I'm working on is something that I've wanted to do forever, but within the paradigm that I had for myself, it didn't fit. I could never look at it and be like, well, this is creating value on this level that I can then justify or reconcile to say, well, it's worth this amount of money and it makes this and it does it in this amount of time. And, you know, it was like to me, being an entrepreneur meant being something that I could explain to people. You know, like if I owned a hardware store and someone said, what do you do? I own a hardware store. People understand that. People come into your store, they buy hammers and nails and blah, blah, blah. They ring it up at the register. You make money. They get their crap. Everybody goes home happy. People understand that. You know, if I became a web designer, people understand that. So it's like I needed it to be something that I could explain without people's eyes glazing over. Well, how the hell do you do that? You know, and not that anyone ever said anything like that to me, but I said it to myself. So my eyes glazed over whenever I said, I'm going to make a movie. And immediately that part of my ego would just go like, well, how the frick is that going to work? You know, and I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain the value of it other than once it was already made and I had like this team of people and all these things going on and it was just like, oh my God, I can't get that going. So I'll just do this instead. And that's and now I just said, you know, are we allowed to curse on this thing?
Yes, you can say anything you want.
So now I'm just like, I should have asked that before. Now I'm just like, fuck that, you know, and I'm doing what I want to do because what the hell, man? I'm tired of not, you know.
That is so good, and that leads right into my next question was, did you ever feel like giving up? And it sounds like at one point you did kind of put your dreams of creating this animated feature film on the back burner and kind of let your paradigm of being an entrepreneur take the front. So, yeah, go into that a little.
Okay, because at the time, it didn't feel that way. Do you know what I mean? There was never a conscious decision to be like, well, what I really want to be is this, but I can't, so I'll just do this thing that I hate instead. At the time, it felt like I'm an entrepreneur, and I want to do this, and I get to make my own rules. So it was a step up from where I was coming from. So that just felt amazing, you know, to start my own business and to start working with clients and to learn these new tools and these new skills, and all of that was unbelievable, you know, and I was being an artist in my field and I was making a name for myself. So all of that was valuable to me until the day that it wasn't. Because at the same time, I always wanted to make a movie too, but I just was like, now's not the time. So now at this point in my life, it feels like if I don't do this, I'm giving up. But say 10 years ago, it didn't feel like giving up. It just felt like now's not the time. I'm not ready for it. I don't know how to do it. Now is when it feels like if you don't do this now, you're never going to do it. That feels like giving up. So doing it.
Did you have, I know for me, when I started a new endeavor or a creative project that I was working on, sometimes I got all of these fears and I got like the not enoughness syndrome. I wasn't smart enough or good enough or wise enough or blah, blah, whatever. Those fears and doubts that come knocking. When you decided to move forward with this, do you have any kind of fears similar to that kind of thing?
Of course, everybody does. It's totally normal. You know, it's very easy to look at somebody who's doing a thing and think like, well, they don't have the same fear that I have about this or that. We all have those fears, and it just becomes a matter of learning to cope with them and learning to. I'm going to steer clear of the word overcome them because I don't know that you do, you know, I don't. So I still have them. So I wouldn't say, oh yeah, I conquered them and I kicked their ass and they're gone. Nah, it's not like that. It's more like, well, even the movie, right? So this past year, the idea of this where I was just like, I need to, at first it started with, I need to be a storyteller. I just need to do that. And the first thing that popped in my head, obviously, was a movie because I've always wanted to make the movie. But the same fears kicked in. And so in the beginning of this journey, earlier in 2021, it was, well, you know what? I can't make the movie because that's not possible, but I can make a graphic novel. So I started working on a graphic novel, and I got pretty deep into it. I had a script going, and I started having panels drawn and characters fleshed out and everything, and I was like, this is really cool. And then I kept saying the same thing. I was like, well, I'm making a graphic novel, but in my mind I'm making a movie, but I'm making it as a graphic novel because that's the only way I can do it. And then I started to question that thought, and I started to say, is it really the only way I can do it? I mean, I used to make that TV show, and I know they have better I used to make a TV show called Planet Bonehead. I know you know that, but not many people probably do. So, and that was an animated television show, and I used to do that. And so I just started thinking, well, maybe there's a way that I can make a movie. So I started looking into it, and I found new programs that didn't exist when I used to make the TV show, and I found new ways of doing things, and until all of a sudden I just started to convince myself maybe I can do this, and then I decided I'm doing this. And so I wouldn't call that overcoming fear, because I still wake up and go, you sure you can do this? And then I just decide, yes, I'm doing this. And then I work on it a little bit every day. And the next thing you know, you're doing it. And then one day it's done. And you're afraid the whole freaking time. So
that is how it happens, though. I mean, and you explained it very gracefully in like that process that you went through. And sometimes it doesn't feel graceful when it's happening, but it kind of just, what I've learned through being connected with you and some of the things that I've learned from you, you have a great perspective on self, like on your personal growth and on the energy that surrounds you and stuff. So how big a part did that play in you being able to move forward and just shift and pivot like that?
It was everything. It was the whole part. Self-awareness, there's a phrase that my friend and I have been using lately. I have a friend that his name is Landon, that we do a mastermind call every Friday, and a phrase that we've been using is self-leadership. Self-leadership meaning that when that fear hits, when that voice inside starts questioning what you're doing, you can lead yourself to a place of soothing it. That's a better word than overcoming it. We all wish that we could overcome fear and conquer it and kick its ass and send it to the curb. But you can't do that, because that fear is there to keep you alive. It's there to make sure that the lions and tigers and bears don't jump out of the woods and eat you. It's there to protect you from the things in the world that actually physically can hurt you when we all lived in caves. And it still exists, so we don't need to conquer it. We need to soothe it. And the way that we do that is through self-leadership and self-awareness, awareness of self, when you're realizing, oh, I'm having that thought again, I'm having that fear again, but I'm not having it. It's just a thought, and I am the person who's aware of it. And I am going to soothe myself into not being afraid of that thought. I'm just going to let that thought be. That takes practice. That takes a commitment to practice doing that every day, because the first time you try that, you feel stupid. You feel like, this is ridiculous. And you might go into a panic attack, and that's okay. But, the next day you try it again, and the next day you try it again. And there are lots of teachers and people. Some of my favorites are like Dr. Joe Dispenza, especially his, because he's one whose programs I went through to really help me learn how to do this and practice doing this. So when you get to that point where now you're feeling a little bit more confident in your ability to soothe yourself past those fears, that's when you can start really taking action.
That is awesome. You mentioned Dr. Joe, and I love his work. Do you have, or can you share a few other tips or tools or practices from your own personal growth toolbox that you kind of use or have come to use and come to rely on to kind of keep you on track as far as your creativity goes and your your creative endeavors and creating the new things that you're bringing into the world?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one thing that I've noticed is that I need different tools at different times. And part of this self-leadership and self-awareness is being able to judge, I'm at the point where I need this tool right now. So, for example, meditation is a wonderful tool. But I am not able to meditate every day just because it's 10 o'clock at night. It's time for me to meditate. You know what I mean? It's not like I can schedule it, and it's not like I can just so the way I think of it is this. When I get to this place that I kind of feel like I'm looking for answers, and then I realize that I'm looking in what Dr. Joe calls the known. I'm just looking around me in what I already know and what I can already think of, and I'm looking for a way to solve a problem. And when I'm doing that, I become aware that I'm doing that. And that's when I know I need meditation now. So I will then start meditating every day because the answer isn't there. You know, the answer isn't there. The answer is in the unknown. It's in that quantum state. It's in that place that you go when you meditate, and you have to allow the answer to come to you and just show up in the world. And it's hard to do that when you're so focused in your egoic state going, I need to find it, because you can't find it that way, and that's why we all get so frustrated. So that's when I turned to meditation. Then an interesting thing happened to me because I've just gone through this cycle where I was meditating all the time. And I was doing the program in his book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I was going through this program, and I was doing the meditations all the time. And then I started getting to the place where I was working on the movie. And then an interesting thing happened to me. I would just go and do my meditations because it was, quote, time to meditate. And I found myself just kind of sitting there. It wasn't doing anything for me. It wasn't helping me. And I was like, what is it that I need? I was like, I don't need to be sitting here doing nothing. I need to be doing now. I need to be writing. I need to be making this movie. I need to be going over to my desk over there and just coming up with stories and coming up with the characters. And that became my outlet. That became the energy work for the time being. And then just recently, just like in the past week or so, I got to a point where going to do that work wasn't doing it for me anymore, because now I got it to a place where I was looking for the next step. And I found myself asking, well, what is it? Is it this? Is it that? And I was trying to force it within what I already knew. And the answer then was, you got to go back to meditating, because now you need the unknown again. So you have to have a whole toolbox of things that work for you. It could be meditation. It could be getting right to it. If you're an artist or something, people like to writers I know sometimes like to just wake up and first thing they do is write 5 pages, just get it out of their heads. It could be yoga or exercise. It could be whatever it is, but it's up to you to decide that right now it's this thing.
Oh, that's so good. And what I'm hearing also, what I'm picking up is the important ingredient of willingness. Because a lot of times we say, we're going to start this, we're going to do this. And as you said, it feels weird. Like when you first start something, it's awkward and it feels weird. And you're like, this is dumb. But when you stick with it until that feeling comes that's guiding you to pivot and go into a different direction, what I notice with you is that you are willing to show up with whatever the guidance is telling you. You're willing to show up with that and honor that.
Mm.
Is that accurate? Like I feel that.
Yes. Yeah. I was. I didn't know how to expand on that, because the answer is yes. You're right. I do. I guess the best way I can explain it is by restating what I said before. It's like when I learned that I'm not trying to conquer my fear, I'm trying to soothe myself within the fear. So that just became a willingness to understand that the hero of my story isn't Batman. I'm not going to beat up the bad guys in my life. I'm going to learn to live among them and not let them bother me. And that's hard because that's especially for someone like me who I'm trying to make an animated movie. What a boring movie that would be. Oh, well, I live in this place and there's all this horrible stuff going on, but just don't let it bother me. Oh, well, end of the story. Who would watch that movie?
The end.
Oh, my life was terrible and everybody died and I just went, whatever, That's not a movie. Nobody wants to read that book or see that show. They want to see.
Well, it
Batman
could be.
do
That kind of sounds like a Lifetime movie.
yeah. Well, that's not a Marvel movie. Iron Man didn't go. Whatever. Do what you want.
I like your hero. He's cool.
So you have to be the hero that isn't the one you're writing about, which to me is kind of, I have to learn how to do that.
What would be the best piece of advice that you have for somebody who may be feeling that creative energy, who may be feeling like they don't belong like in the 9-to-5 grind that is just being offered to them all the time? They feel that creative spark maybe, but they don't know what to do with it. Do you have any advice in that direction?
The first thing that pops in my head is the stuff that I feel like I hear everybody say, like, find time outside of your regular stuff to do it. And what I want to say in my heart is quit all that crap that you hate and just do it. And trust that it'll work out. And then I'm afraid to say that to somebody else. You know what I mean? If you were talking to most teachers or speakers or something, and you were like, I have to have this job, and I'm stuck in the 9-to-5, but I really want to do this thing. The normal, accepted, justifiable advice is, well, take a couple hours in the morning or take a couple hours after work and work on the thing, and maybe cut back on, you don't have to watch so much television. You can do this instead. And everyone shakes their head and goes, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Except that it doesn't, because we don't do that. And the thing that we want to do is just tell everybody that we're stuck with to go fuck themselves and quit that thing and get rid of all that shit you don't want and just dive into the thing that you do. Because when you do that, the universe catches you. Except when you ask me how, I have no freaking idea how. That's the fear.
Right.
That's the fear. I don't know how. I don't know how it's going to catch me. All I know is that I haven't landed and hit anything jagged yet. It's working.
Right. You haven't fallen off the cliff.
So I don't give advice because I don't need anyone calling me saying, I quit my job and now you didn't do it right. I don't know what to tell you. You didn't.
Well, actually, the advice you gave was very good. And it's kind of like, just kind of go with whatever the hell feels good to you. Do more of what you love and less of what you hate and see what happens. And I kind of like that.
Okay, we'll go with that then.
So our time is almost up. Our time always flies every time I talk to you. It's because I spend most of it giggling. You're a funny guy. Where can people go to learn more about you and what you've got going on?
Well, the best place to go, there are 3 places. One is my Facebook group. It's Art Fueled Life by Fuel Blue. The other is my YouTube channel, and that's youtube.com/fuelblue. And if you can't remember either of those, just go to fuelblue.com and it links right to both of them. So those are the places. Right now, fuelblue.com is sort of just a launching place to the other 2 places. But I'll be adding some things there. As the movie progresses, I'll be creating I'll be documenting the behind the scenes process. But right now,
I can't wait.
Writing, and there's nothing to show with that. You know, I can't I have this idea where I'm going to be doing these videos where I'm drawing and talking at the same time, but I can't write and talk at the same time. So I don't know how to document the writing part.
You have to get Laura with the camera to do a behind the scenes. Like
it's boring.
reality
It's like 90% me sitting there staring at things, and then all of a sudden I get this spark and I go, oh, and I start typing stuff, and that's what it looks like. It's nobody wants to see it.
You have been an awesome guest today, as usual. I love creating ripples of awareness with you. Everybody, go check out Bobby Donohue and all the goodness that he's got going on. Keep your eyes out for his new animated feature film. That will be it's in the creative process now, and as soon as I have an update on that, I will share it with all of you listeners to go check him out on Facebook. I'm a member of his group, and I actually love it, so I'll see you there if you go check that out. Bobby Donohue has been our special guest today. I'm your host, Stephanie Kappen. Thanks for being here with us on the MindGrow Radio Storyteller Series podcast. And until we meet again, keep shining in your brilliance. We'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye, everybody.